John?
What's going on?
That's a good question.
Alright, I know what you're all thinking. Bonnie fan, what the fuck? That intro had nothing to do with the subject matter of this video, and you'd be correct. I just thought it was funny. Now, I know some of you have been waiting for this video for almost a year, so I'm just gonna jump right into it. I'm gonna let Pass Me take over, and what better way to begin than with Guarma? If I go south down to the corner of the map, down here, I can go to Guarma. Guarma is loaded on the game world all the time. It's just out of bounds in Lemoyne. I am going to be doing this for a little bit, but only for the first chapter, because only the first chapter has live commentary. So if you see 3 dots in the top right-hand corner, then just know that it isn't live commentary. So all I have to do is spawn any type of boat. I think that one will do. A canoe will do fine. Alright, I just get in this canoe. And then go. And then slow down. Uh-oh. Alright, so let's try that again. I'm gonna make myself invincible this time, though, so that that doesn't happen. Okay. So now full speed ahead. Just get across here. Oh, well, that did not at all go to plan. Actually, you know what I could do to fix this issue? Just, Cool, now that we're on the other side, I'll add the water back. Oh. No, not that. Arthur, what the hell was that? So getting to Guarma from this point takes about 3 to 5 minutes of straight riding. Yeah, it's a long-ass ride. Let's see. Oh, Guarma load. So normally, if you go too far on an area that's out of bounds, the ground becomes low poly and doesn't have any collision. Guarma is an exception to this for some reason. Most of the map where it's low poly is still entirely solid and walkable. The one I'm at right now is part of Lemoyne, so it has no collision. We'll arrive in Guarma shortly. Thank you for traveling with Arthur Morgan Travel Agency. Alright, let's go. Let's dig in, fellas. Make some ground. Uh-oh. This does not look solid, but it actually is. So if I do that, fly around here, this entire map is here. This also goes almost into the clouds, but yep. And I've also discovered that the actual map down there is not accurate at all. Okay. Oh shit. Oh, I didn't think that would happen. That didn't happen last time. Dumb horse. The map is somewhat accurate here, but sometimes it just is completely straight up wrong. Like here, for instance, look, I'm on land, but it says I'm in the water. So the reason why I think this is because the minimap uses a slightly older version of Guarma, which is the same reason why the minimap says there's a path here when there actually isn't. There is a path, but it ends way before the minimap says it does. Here's what it looks like on the map, and here's where it actually ends. There's actually an island just off the coast of Guarma, and I'm not sure if you can normally see it, because I think the side it's on is inaccessible, but just in case, here's what it looks like. So a lot of you might have noticed this, which looks like a house off the main Guarma map. It's actually the compound that you go to at the beginning of Welcome to the New World with Hercule, and fight off the Guarma soldiers. And here's a quick exploration of that compound. A little fact that you might not have known is Guarma actually has a unique horizon that is different than the one normally used in-game, and I think the reason for this is, 1, to make Guarma look more tropical, and 2, because if this horizon wasn't here, then you can actually see the edge of the game world from Guarma. And those asking for it, here's a quick fly around around the entire island of Guarma, and you can really see how big the island actually is. And right here I find out that the rainbow that appears in-game sometimes isn't actually in the skybox, it's just an overlay that appears in a certain area, and it rotates depending on where you're facing. Anyway, I'm going to finish off the Guarma chapter by showing you a fly around the entire island, so enjoy. And just for fun, here's what it looks like when you turn on Guarma water in New Austin. And with the conclusion of Guarma, let's move on to our shortest chapter today, Mexico. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. The only reason I'm making a chapter about Mexico is to clear some stuff up from my last video. I have since played through Red Dead Redemption 1, so I'm a lot more knowledgeable about Mexico and the stuff that's in that game. The main thing I wanted to show off is that the soundtrack from Mexico in the first game still plays if you manage to make it to Mexico. And here's a sample of it.
Whoa, easy.
Now, before we move on to the next chapter, I just want to talk about one more thing. At least in the PS4 version of Red Dead Redemption 2, there are leftovers in the files pertaining to Mexico. Low-quality building textures, as well as settlement models, and even text files are left over mentioning Mexico. I'll include links to these in the description. All these files, including the dog barks, which play near where the settlements were in the first game, which I talked about in my last video, and the music that plays if you find a way to get to Mexico, makes it very clear that Mexico was meant to be in the game at some point, which isn't new information. But it begs the question, why would they even make these files if they were only going to have them go unused anyway? I think from a story standpoint, it makes sense why you can't go there. John had not been to Mexico prior to Red Dead 1, so it wouldn't make any sense for him to have free reign of it in Red Dead 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a primarily story-driven game. Unless something was relevant to the story, it doesn't make any sense for it to be involved. Between 1899 and 1907, Mexico had an agreement with the United States to keep the borders closed, which is why you can't go to it. Although the bridges leading into Mexico from the first game don't make an appearance in the sequel, I still think it would have been cool to see Broader and Frontera Bridge, as well as the bridges in Ramita de la Bahia in the game, either destroyed or with barriers blocking access. Rockstar did to Mexico what they did to Arthur in New Austin, and now all we have is the outline of El Presidio visible from the bank of the San Luis River, a lonely reminder of what could have been. And with that surprisingly depressing ending, let's move on to the next chapter of this video, the Grizzlies. A lot of you probably know that in the beta, the Grizzlies is meant to be a lot bigger, shown here on these leaked beta maps that you've probably seen 1,000 times before. Now, there are still remnants of this bigger map in the final game just out of bounds in the northern part of the Grizzlies. This area of the map was partially showed off during the mission when you ride out with Javier to go rescue John, but you still don't get a good look at a lot of what is out there. And there is a surprising amount out here. A frozen waterfall, glacial artifacts, an unseen lake, which by the way does not have a Neanderthal in it. I talk about this myth more in this video, go watch it, okay, thanks. Now, this indicates that these areas were originally accessible, but there's also evidence of a cut prologue chapter, but I'm not going to go into detail about that in this video. Instead, I'll link Basement Gamer Bros video about it because I think they talk about it pretty well and word it way better than I ever could, so go check that out if you're curious about this prologue chapter, supposed prologue chapter. However, what I will talk about is why I think the supposed chapter got cut. And in the background, there'll be footage of me flying around the Grizzlies, showing off stuff that you normally wouldn't see. I'm not going to point stuff out or describe what's happening because, come on, y'all have eyes. You can see what's going on. You don't need me to point out why something is interesting. So, it's obvious to me at least, but the main reason for Ambrino being shrunk down was because of the prologue chapter being cut, or shortened. Since it only holds a small place in the story, it was decided to make it smaller. I personally think this prologue chapter was cut so that they could 1, keep up the ambiguity of the Blackwater Massacre, and 2, because they thought it was unnecessary and decided to just start the game during the gang's escape to Coulter rather than showing the events prior. And honestly, I don't think it was the worst idea. The game starts off fine. Adding a whole prologue chapter wouldn't add too much to the game. Sure, it would be more game to play, but it wouldn't tell more of a story than what we got during dialogue from Coulter and just for the rest of the game. Plus, showing the Blackwater Massacre wouldn't make much sense because Arthur wasn't even a part of it. Arthur is just as confused as us when we start the game. The only info we have is what was written in Arthur's journal and through dialogue. And Red Dead Redemption 1, but shh, we're focusing on this game for now. I'll talk more about the Blackwater heist in the last chapter of this video because I do have some things I want to say about it, amongst other things. The last thing I want to show off before we end this chapter is this massive fallen trees over here, which looks like we're knocked over by an avalanche. Could be story related, could just be a detail, just outside the map? I don't know. The path leading up to it, however, is blocked, so you're normally not able to see this. Now with all that out of the way, let's move on to the most underutilized state in the entire game, New Austin.
You banners are a joke!
Okay, so I might have lied. The main focus of this chapter is Gaptooth Mine. At least the beginning of it will be. I will talk about the entirety of New Austin later in this chapter because boy do I have a lot to say about it. As many of you already know, Gaptooth Mine was in Red Dead 1, and unlike in this game, on top of being involved in a badass mission where you ride a minecart while shooting at baddies, it was fully explorable. People say that New Austin was completely copied over from Red Dead 1, and that's an accurate assessment. You know why? Because Gaptooth Mine still uses fucking Red Dead Redemption 1 textures. I'm not joking. The entirety of Gaptooth Mine is here, but most of it's blocked off. Behind the blockade, half of it uses Red Dead 1 textures, and the other half isn't textured at all. And then there's this third weird part where it looks like reflections are broken, and it makes Arthur look like he's made of tinfoil. The missing textures and broken reflections make me think there was a problem when they were porting the map over. All of the rocks lack a texture, while the crates and other map props from Red Dead Redemption 1 still maintain their Red Dead 1 appearance. And as a fun little side note, some of these props are actually destructible. Some people think Red Dead Redemption 2 was built off of the Red Dead Redemption 1 map, and in my opinion, this is entirely false. If this were true, New Austin would have been a part of the leaked map from 2016, which it wasn't. I feel like what happened behind the scenes was when the map leaked, Rockstar were under pressure to add the map from the first game. Since people saw West Elizabeth was a part of the Red Dead 2 map, a lot of people were probably wondering where New Austin and Mexico were, which is why New Austin is so underutilized in the final game. It was tacked on to an already completed map. In the entire story, one mission takes place in New Austin. Yeah, you remember what I said in the Mexico chapter? Red Dead Redemption 2 is a primarily story-driven game. Unless something was relevant to the story, it doesn't make any sense for it to be involved. Yeah, well, forget that. New Austin goes completely against everything I said there. Of course New Austin would go against the rules, because New Austin is stuck in 1899. All the graves in New Austin have one thing in common. None of them exceed 1899. This is even with me as John in the epilogue, by the way. My theory goes as follows. Rockstar didn't have time to make two versions of New Austin, which is why Arthur was denied access. More evidence to prove that New Austin was added late in development is... well, let me just show you. Take a look at these pictures of towns in every other state in the game. And now look at the towns in New Austin. Notice a difference? Well, in case you don't, I'll give you a hint. Take a look at the outline. Notice how the New Austin settlements lack the outline that all other major towns include. Arthur was meant to be able to go to New Austin, but he was denied the ability to, which makes sense in the story. But why even have Roger Clark record dialogue and give Arthur unique journal drawings despite the fact the story disallows him to go there? Technically speaking, the gang was only wanted in Blackwater, and by association West Elizabeth. New Austin shouldn't have had a reason to be on lockdown or have Pinkerton patrols like West Elizabeth does. I mean, maybe they'd assume they'd go back out west, but this doesn't make sense since the Pinkertons knew the gang went up into the mountains. If New Austin was on lockdown, then why wasn't the entire state of Amberino and New Hanover also on lockdown? Their states were not involved in the Blackwater ferry job, therefore they have no reason to be on lockdown. And that's why all the states that border West Elizabeth are not on lockdown. New Austin is the only one that is. New Austin, by all accounts, should be accessible to Arthur, but it isn't. Rockstar obviously ran out of time during development, and that's why we have a half-assed version of New Austin and only remnants of Mexico. New Austin is the largest state in the game, but there is virtually nothing to do in it, especially compared to the massive stranger missions and activities to do in Redemption 1. New Austin in Red Dead Redemption 2 is a shell of its former... future self? Well, that doesn't make sense. New Austin in Red Dead Redemption 2 is nothing but a shell of what it was in Red Dead Redemption 1. No, we're not doing a fucking bully reference in this Red Dead Redemption 2 beta video. Play the actual chapter card, please. So, for this chapter, I was originally going to go over a ton of stuff that I didn't go over in the actual video, but during editing, I've revised this video several times, so everything I was going to cover here, I managed to fit into the video one way or another. Some stuff about New Austin and all that, I managed to fit into the New Austin chapter, so I'm going to use this chapter for credits. If you watched all the way through, I want to thank you because this has by far been my most ambitious project yet, despite the fact it's not my longest video, but it is definitely the most amount of effort I've put into one video. This will be my last Red Dead Redemption 2 beta video I'll make because I don't want to become a Red Dead Redemption 2 beta channel or a Red Dead channel at all, because Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game that I love and I don't want to ruin it by making my channel solely Red Dead Redemption 2 based. I just want to enjoy the game for what it is. With that being said, please do not subscribe if you're expecting Red Dead 2 beta content. But if you like my other content that I make, or you like my editing style, or you find me funny, then please do subscribe because I'm not going to stop making videos anytime soon. Uploads might be slow, but I'm not going to stop making them anytime soon because I do enjoy editing, I enjoy making videos, and I enjoy entertaining people. I did take criticism from my first video to refine this one and make it as best as it possibly could be for everyone and as enjoyable for everyone. I don't really want to praise myself here, but I do think that it turned out pretty well. And with that all out of the way, let's get to the credits. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.